Asala has been sitting quietly on the deck for the past 5 hours, and I'm not entirely sure why. Throughout this trip of ours, the three of us, Asala, Mansour, and myself, have developed a friendship. It begun strangely enough with the conception of employer and employee, seeing as how Mansour was actually being paid to drive through the country and Asala to accompany me. As a result, decisions regarding intent were somehow delegated to me, and answers didn't come easily. Gradually, I came to understand that the situation was about my experience and acted commensurately, and only then I realized that the situation was never really about my experience, but about the experience, and it was then that things began to flow. It was the first time that any of us had visited the Kandalama, the only difference being that both Asala and Mansour had lived in this country for all their lives. After what seemed like an endless span of time spent traveling on a winding dirt path surrounded by jungle, we finally emerged onto the Kandalama grounds, and all of us rejoiced. As we drove up, we were greeted by men in pristine white suits who grabbed our luggage and then disappeared into the hotel with it. An attractive Sri Lankan girl led me to a deck and presented me with a fruit drink. Suddenly, Asala and Mansour disappeared from sight and mind, and I basked in the pleasure of the luxury that surrounded me. Then, I realized that for the first time in several days, I was without Asala and Mansour, and I curiously headed back into the lobby. They were standing at the front desk arguing with the lobby attendant, who was insisting that they stay in the servants' quarters. I responded that Asala was accompanying me on the trip, and the attendant nodded, and then murmured some words to Asala and Mansour. Shortly thereafter, Mansour headed back to the van and drove off. Later, I found out from Asala that Mansour had gone to stay in the servants' quarters, and from a hotel employee, I found out that the servants' quarters consisted of a single bed in a shared room with 2 meals per day, which essentially consisted of rice and curry. Less than 300 feet away, Asala and I were dining in the hotel's 5-star restaurant, and I was delightedly heaping gourmet cuisine onto my plate while Asala contented himself with a simple plate of rice and curry. Today I spent time at the hotel spa, and later drinking cocktails by the infinity pool while Asala stayed in the room with his school books. Now he is out there, sitting on the deck, staring into the jungle. Perhaps he feels uncomfortable in this hotel. Perhaps it's the fact that Mansour is confined to a Spartan 1-bedroom accommodation, while he's confined to the accommodations in the most glamorous hotel in all Sri Lanka that bothers him. Perhaps it bothers him that all the employees in the hotel are Sri Lankan, while all the guests are Europeans. Perhaps it bothers him that the most beautiful accommodation in Sri Lanka is not for Sri Lankans.